Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maddox Scale and Customer Success Summit. You are currently watching the Transitioning Clients from High Touch to a Pooled Model. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, and as I introduce them, I'm going to have them answer our icebreaker question, which is, what would you like to scale in your personal life? Emilia D'Anzica, the founder and managing partner at Growth Molecules. She is also the co-author of the book Pressing On as a Tech Mom. And prior to founding her own consulting agency, she was a CCO at Copper and VP of Customer Engagement at WalkMe. Emilia, nice to meet you and welcome to the session. So, what would you like to scale in your personal life?
Hi, everyone. Well, I have to be honest. If I had to automate or scale anything, it'd probably be myself. As my partner has told me what I'm able to accomplish in a day, he finds difficult to keep up with, and I feel very honored that he says that. But I'm just so focused and really outcomes driven that I sometimes wish I had more either time or another me to help me. So I'm blessed to have lots of great people around me that are able to help me. So I'm thankful for that. So I guess more time, if anything.
I wish that too. Absolutely. Well, great. So before we start our session, I just want to remind everyone to please add any questions that you have into the chat. We will have time at the end for a Q&A, and any questions we don't get to, we'll share with our speaker after the session and post the answers alongside the session recording when the Resource Hub goes live. And with that, I'm going to hop off here and let Emilia get into it.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. And hello to all of you. I love all these hellos. Feel free to let me know where you're dialing in from. You probably heard my dog. I am here in Sonoma County, California, about an hour away from San Francisco, and super excited to talk about one of my favorite topics because so many of our clients are moving from a higher touch model to a more pooled model. And why? Well, there are many reasons why, but ultimately it's all about improving the customer experience. So let's get into it. Before I share any more, I would just love to know, besides where you are, what type of model are you currently offering at your organization? So we'll give you a moment to answer. All right. And Matt, I'm not sure if the group can see what everyone's typing in, but it looks like multi-options is a big one, as well as we're figuring it out. And I think a lot of companies are currently figuring it out. And that's probably why you're here today. Okay. Well, Matt already gave me a brief overview. If you'd like to connect with me, please feel free. I love meeting new people on LinkedIn. I think you've already introduced me, so I won't share any more. But yes, definitely connect with me if you have time. What we're going to cover today is hopefully answer a lot of the questions that you have, not only in the chat and during our Q&A, but also talk about transitioning from high touch to a pooled model, and then the challenges that many companies are currently facing. And that includes, how do you get budget and how do you do it in a thoughtful way that you're actually able to measure success? Because all too often, companies or teams implement a program, but they're not able to show the board what was the outcome. And of course, it has to be numbers driven, right? So we'll talk about that as well. First, let's touch on the challenges with high touch. And I think it's no surprise that high touch is first of all, more than anything, a personalized one-on-one experience with clients. And most companies sub 1 million, Of course, the founder is very involved in not only selling, but onboarding and making sure the clients are successful and advocates of the product. But as you grow and you start hiring professional customer success managers, that high touch model can become very expensive, even if it's a competitive differentiator. And most customers today, according to HubSpot, will say that customer experience is just as important as the product itself, especially in a very competitive landscape where many of the products are similar. It's that customer experience, that customer success emotion that you're putting customer clients through that will be the do we renew or not. So a high touch model obviously has a lot of perks when it comes to retaining, and it can be a competitive differentiator. The problem many companies see with it is it's not scalable, right? So companies that have a high touch model also report that they have higher operational costs related to that. And so especially now, even if the stock market is booming, and we just saw Nvidia surpass Apple with the $3 trillion plus market cap, that also is not necessarily impacting the SaaS industry, software as a service. So SaaS companies are still, they're still not at where they used to be in COVID times when there were huge surges. Just think about Zoom. Their stock was closer to 500. Now it's $60. There's been dramatic changes in how companies are buying software products, and they're being more cautious, right? The spend has changed dramatically. And so boards are asking companies, look at your operational costs and cut often customer success. We've even heard people say customer success is dead. Well, it's actually not, it's just simply changing. And that's really where the pooled model is increasingly becoming important. And as we work with clients at Growth Molecules, we're seeing an increased interest in what is a pooled model. How do we define it for our company and our customers? After all, each company has a slightly different model, especially if you're in a competitive landscape. You need to be have a differentiator. And so what is a pooled model, right? It's not only sharing resources, but also sharing hours, for example, when you're doing open office hours, how you put people through training. An example of a company who's been doing this for a very long time is ADP for onboarding, or even Zendesk, and it's very early when they were first pre-going public. They insisted that if you were in a certain tier, you went through onboarding with a group of similar companies, not necessarily a competitor, but companies that were working in a similar way through onboarding. And then only then were you going to talk to a customer success manager, excuse me. And so a pooled model, and I've led several of these transitions and companies where we realized the one-on-one is not only expensive, but our CSMs aren't able to get to customers fast enough. The pooled model allowed for faster response times, and of course, a reduction in operations costs. So the benefits, I mean, there's so many to pooled models, especially faster response times, CSMs helping one another, less burnout. You know what your responsibilities are, and that you can work with other experts on the team to help with certain things. So for example, you'll notice that, oh, and I'm just looking at the note, it might be, okay. Hopefully you're able to see my screen. Hannah will tell me if you're not. But the benefits of the pool model is you have a group of CSMs that you're working with that you're able to count on each other. So when we do training for CSM teams, at near the end, when we talk about what are your biggest takeaways, we often ask CSMs, what is your biggest strength that you can bring to your team every single day? And everyone has a different strength, right? And so in a pooled model, it works so beautifully if someone understands numbers really well, someone is better at taking difficult conversations, and in a pooled model, you're able to help each other. The other thing I'll say, and this comes from my days at WalkMe, which is an in-application platform. When we built up the pooled model there, what we did is have experts according to platform. So something like WalkMe, Pendo, any of those in-app guide platforms, they live on top of any platform. So we had Salesforce experts, Workday experts, SAP experts, whatever it was that we pooled together, so that the client was getting an expert on their particular platform that they were implementing WalkMe, for example. So there are many benefits to the pooled model that you can bring to your own team when you think about, should we do this? I want to share a case study. Hopefully someone on G2 is on this call today. If you're not, I'm giving you kudos. But we are a G2 client. We started using G2 in the paid format about 18 months ago. And as we saw more and more of our clients giving G2 reviews for growth molecules, we said, you know what, we want the world to have a better experience, see some of our work. And we went through the onboarding program with G2. Now, yes, I was able to get certified in it on my own. They did have a great knowledge base and incentivized programs with stars and titles and all that fun stuff, gamification, to make sure that I was really understanding the benefits of G2, but I was assigned a CSM. And then earlier this year, I was notified that they were moving to a pooled model. Now, they didn't use that verbiage, of course, but they let us know that we were going to have a better experience, and here's why. And they went through the reasons why in email communication, not once, but several times. You all know that as humans, especially my teenage children, they need to be told several times that something's changing, because as humans, we hate change. And so I knew it was coming, but I didn't know exactly what was happening. And I knew that I had a meeting coming up with my CSM. So during that meeting, I met my new account manager, who explained to me what the new model with G2 would be. I was a little skeptical at first. I said, in a joking way, after all, most of us probably on this call are in customer success. We have our jokes that we don't say publicly to clients, but I said, X person, am I only going to see you when it's time for renewal or to increase my prices? And he laughed, and there was obviously an awkward silence. And he said, no, I will be with you. You have my email. You can reach out to me. But if you need immediate assistance with your product or you have questions, just know you have a team that can answer. And so obviously I was going to test it, being the person I am. And I have to say, I've had a great experience. My answers are helpful. We did have a meeting in that initial call. We had our G2 designer who helped me design everything on the call, and anything that we needed additional follow-up with, he took notes and made sure that the pooled team was able to help me. And so I bring this up because, one, companies are doing it successfully. And I just wanted to give a shout out to G2 for really doing this in a way where it didn't just happen instantly. There was a way to lead up to it and they've really laid out the resources beautifully so that it's easier to get a training support as we need it without necessarily having a one-on-one. Now, we're not in that high enterprise space, so it might be different for enterprise clients, but for smaller companies like ours, it was the right strategy in my experience, especially being the end user. So I wanted to share that. Hopefully that was helpful. All right, next, where do you start with your program? First, if you haven't done an honest assessment of your organization, like where are we as an organization when it comes to supporting our clients, you want to take a step back and do that. And we highly recommend diagnostic assessments. Obviously, we do that, so we're biased. Of course, we do that. But if you're going to do it on your own, this is our scored methodology. I wanted to share it with all of you today. And ask yourselves, honestly, where are you with your strategy? Why do you want to move towards a pooled model? And how are you going to communicate it? Who's going to operationalize everything? If you don't operationalize, how do you have open office hours? Or who's going to be answering the questions that people send in? How are you going to build relationships beyond that once a year renewal, which is, in my opinion, a terrible experience? And then, of course, how are you going to execute change? Billions of dollars are spent on poor change management, or I should say technology, because there's poor execution. Change management is left out. It's just suddenly announced. And so you really want to be honest with yourself. How are you going to scale this transition and really become a partner that can predict churn or growth with clients, even if you're moving to a pooled model? As well, you want to segment your clients. So once you do that diagnostic assessment, look at your strategy, how are you going to execute change? You also want to think about, how am I segmenting our clients? What can we pool for everyone? And then how do we have a higher touch VIP experience for the customers who can and want to pay for it? There is, especially in SaaS today, as more and more companies charge for onboarding and other added services, there is still a space for VIP customer experience, especially in complex enterprise solutions. And then really, you want to make sure that your communication strategies, as you're building out this new pooled model, breaks down silos. There can be so much tension with your team internally that can lead to a failed pooled launch. So you really want to make sure you bring people together, starting with your leadership. If your leadership is saying negative things about moving to a pooled model or doesn't understand the why, imagine what's happening behind closed doors or on Zoom when you're not in the room. So this is a picture of one of our clients, and James Scott and Sabina Pons, who led a customer journey mapping experience for one of our clients, really bringing people across the whole go-to-market team together to really understand, what is the current customer journey, what is the North Star of where we need to get to, and how do we get to the next phase of our growth with improved customer experience, more access to resources, without compromising not only CSM's times, burning them out, but also compromising the customer. Last thing is, you really want to make sure that you automate your playbooks. Today, with all the incredible customer success technology out there that's incorporating AI, thank you ChatGPT and all the other AI players out there, it's just incredible what you can do, and you can really automate a lot of your playbooks if you move to a pooled model. So make sure you not only make it simple for your CSMs to understand what's in it for me, how is it changing, who's responsible for what, right? If you don't have a RACI model in place for a pooled model, that's a huge risk. So you want to make sure that you have that and make it jargon free when it comes to explaining to your CSMs and your customers what's changing and why. So the automation of playbooks will become incredibly important. So bringing it all together across all your segments, really understanding in the pooled model, where can we still identify expansion opportunities? You need to bring in your product team, your sales, your customer success, your marketing to really understand if we're moving to a pooled model, where's marketing interjecting, to which personas, right? And then how do we identify the risks when they come up? How does, in the pooled model, someone reach out if we see a risk? For example, when someone suddenly downloads all their data or removes several people from the platform. Really, really important. You need to segment, you need to journey map, and then you need to train your team. And it's really a team effort when it comes to moving to a pooled model. Other key considerations, I know this is a very short webinar, so I'm trying to cover as much ground as I can. You really want to make sure your client communication strategy is spot on. CS to do it alone without their marketing best friends is a huge risk. You want to make sure your marketing team is going to help you automate and have the voice of your brand. All too often, if you don't have a message that resonates with each persona, it can result in a failed attempt. And then, of course, the transition meetings for high touch. I mean, if you think about G2 taking the time for a company like ours, we're a boutique customer success management consulting firm, they took the time to have a transition meeting with me and Alex, our G2 administrator, to really explain to us what's changing for us. Should we be concerned about this? Means a lot, right? So you really want to make sure you don't skip your high touch customers. And then invest in technology. I mean, thank you, Matic, for putting today on. I have to give a shout out to their platform. They automate a lot of things like executive business reviews. Well, the technology, the AI is out there. Make sure you invest in technology. You're going to burn out your CSMs, your ops team, and the pooled model may not work if you're not investing in tech as the foundation of the people that you're going to enable with a pooled model. So last but not least, I want to make sure there's time for questions, but I have 2 more slides for you. You want to make sure that you monitor and evaluate the transition. Without monitoring, you can't show success to your board. And you want to make sure that before you do anything, especially a massive launch, do some A/B testing, test some pooled model strategies that you've identified with a group and ask for candid feedback. Take the time to do those 30-minute interviews. Give an incentive to fill in the survey, and then do the same with your B group. You also want to do it by cohort when it comes to measuring. What I mean is, when you first launched it, for the first 3 months, measure that group together over the course of the year, right? So by cohort, look at data. And then, of course, if you increase speed to onboarding, it really doesn't matter if it doesn't lead to adoption. So you want to make sure in a pooled model, get onboarding right. It is the beginning of churn or growth. You usually have 1 shot at it. So make onboarding really count, and that it's going to lead to adoption. If there's one place you can't skimp, it's got to be good onboarding, even if you move to a pooled model. And it has to lead to improved gross revenue retention, obviously logo retention, and then net revenue retention. Are you selling more than you're losing? Last thing, customers. it's great that you're making all this money, your NRR, your GRR is going up, but that only comes if your customers' needs are met. And I mean, this quote's speaks for itself. Continuous monitoring improves transition outcomes by 40%. So you need to monitor your success of your customers. Give them good onboarding, make sure they adopt, have continuous impact on their business. To be successful with just one implementation of your product is not enough. You need to show continuously the impact. I mean, again, I can't help it. Matic is a good product for that. They're showing continuous progression of the impact, and have a good knowledge base. There's great communities out there, academies for training, and then, mixed feelings on NPS. We all know that. But however you do it, get your customers' pulse, continuous pulse on what's going well with this pooled model. Where can we be improving? That has to be continuously asked, at least on a quarterly cadence or in app. So I want to leave it there. I know I said a lot. Thank you everyone for joining me today, and happy to take questions, Matt, if there are any.
Thank you, Emilia. That was absolutely wonderful. And yes, there is a few questions. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I figure we can probably answer one or two. So let's just jump right into it. Sound good? Oh,
Let's do it.
got a question from Caleb. What automation strategies for marketing people can you suggest to communicate the transition better?
Yeah, so the average person needs to be told 6 to 8 times that change is coming. So if that's the case, you really want to first sit down with marketing and explain why the change, what is the expected outcome, and then they will help you craft communication by persona, right? If the customer persona is different than your marketing persona, you better come prepared to explain what is the customer persona that you want to educate. And leadership is going to need different communication than the day-to-day users. So help them get webinars in place, help them get training in place, help them write the voice of the customer emails, and that they're automated. Your CSMs should not have to do that one-on-one. There's way too much incredible communication tech out there to help you automate this.
Thank you, Emilia. I really appreciate that. I don't think that we have time for one or for another question, so we'll end the session here. Any questions that we weren't able to get to, we'll be passing along to our speaker and sharing their answers along with the recording of the session in our resource hub. All Summit attendees will be notified when the recordings are live. And thank you again to our wonderful speaker for joining us today. And thank you else for everyone else for attending. Hope you have a great rest of the session. We'll see you at some of the other sessions.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.